Hello, Pepe. Welcome to this virtual room.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me for the interview. This is an interview for the Archives of American Art at the Smithsonian Institution. And this interview is for the Pandemic Project. My name is Fernanda Espinosa, and I'm interviewing Pepe Coronado, and he's in his studio in Austin. So Pepe, again, welcome. Can you please introduce yourself and just let me know how you've been doing?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for having me and for inviting me to be part of this project. Very valuable project to document this situation. So, my name is Pepe Coronado, and I'm currently in Austin, Texas. Just moved my studio here from New York about 6 months ago. And that process took a while to, one, decide to move, and second, to move all the content of the studio. And my studio is kind of a combination of my work, and then I collaborate with a lot of artists making prints. So, moving the archive of all the artists' works and my work, and then the idea of coming to Austin, where I used to live back in the 90s. I actually started printing here and eventually moved to DC and then New York. So I'm back, and my idea was to start a link between Austin and New York. So I came in December, set up, and started working by the end of January or so. But then the pandemic hit, and all the plans changed. I left a small studio in New York with a sample of the archive and a lot of work that was already moving around in shows and exhibitions. So all that got taken back and then eventually moved out. So I have to close temporarily that office studio in New York until we figure out what happened with this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been so many changes for everyone. Can you tell me a little bit more about, in addition to the impact of you having to close your studio in New York, how have you been taking it as an artist, and if you wanted to share at a personal level as well?
Yeah, I think the dialogue have to now always have some personal aspect, right? Pre-pandemic, we used to talk about our work and our studio practice, but I think now that because of the virus, life is very intertwined with the practice now. So personally, in the art part, it was really hard because everything just everything stopped. So I was supposed to have an exhibition in May in New York with an organization called High Arts, and it was a 2-person show. One of the artists that I have collaborated for a long time, over 10 years span, we were having kind of like a big show of all our collaboration. Carlos Jesus Martinez Dominguez and I. And so that was the first shock. We were actually in the middle of producing that work. The work encompassed, like I said, 10 years, but we were, finishing some pieces and adding some work and archiving and documenting all the stuff we have done and what we have there and what we have here. And then, that stopped. And so that was a big hit because we have been working on that for a while and we're looking forward to that. And then a lot of other smaller projects that were, being talked about have to be postponed, and who knows till when. And then there is the part of, let's say, kind of more of like the business side of, sales and sending things and producing things for other people. That also, got affected by that. So, and that's a big deal because then that brings the issue of rent. We have to survive. We have to pay rent. I have just moved here. Uh, and I'm in a complex with other print studios, and the bigger landlord of the building itself was not willing to accommodate the process of the moment. And then there was just like this looking around, how do we find resources? What can help? And of course, because of the way a lot of artist studios are set up, let's say, we don't qualify within a lot of the small business structure, right? As an entity, and then personally also, because I don't work for anybody, I get paid by different sources, and so all that became very stressful, and a lot of work went into that. It's filling out grants and filling out proposal and filling out information, and so it was a couple of hard months of trying to figure out, how to get some kind of support, relief, and then on top of that, you try to stay active. But it's hard to be productive when, you walk into your home, and I have 2 adult kids, and, walk in there, and my son lost his job, and my daughter was still working, but then she eventually lost her job. And then how do we, as a unit, how do we support each other? And so it's still hard. I mean, we're 6 months into this, and we're still technically closed down to people. In the studio, I relied a lot on events, open studios, artist demonstrations, artist talk. That's the way we connect with the audience, and engage the audience so they can then be aware of all the prints and all the work we produce. So, all that is not happening. So we kind of lose that connection. And then we always have a presence virtually, Instagram, social media, websites and stuff. So then how do you retool all that? And, that's another set of, another thing that you have to now pay attention and devote time and resources, and there is a learning curve to that be your only source to link with the audiences. So anyway, there are some other projects that have been able to happen, but a lot of it is still very hard. And then again, I collaborate with a lot of artists, and it's a lot of artists. Some artists are doing okay because of their situation worked out, but a lot of artists are not. And so, it's hard to, when you talk to somebody that have lost their studio or have lost their apartment or have to move, it puts in a tough road ahead of creativity. How do we talk about a creative project when they have to run, because they lost their apartment or their studio? So all of that it's just kind of part of the environment right now, when we think about creating work, or we think about doing a project, or how to make it, how to just, I feel I'm in this space of, as we talked earlier, one is difficult to plan, So what kind of move you make to maintain certain, to buy time. I feel that all I'm doing right now is buying time, you know, till when this is going to stabilize a little bit. And that's, you know, that's personally, that's the practice. And then on top of that, we are in a very tough situation socially. So then you have that on top that requires attention, that requires participation, right? So politically and socially. So these, all these racial issues are very important to my practice, to me personally, and a lot of the artists that I work. So we have always produced work about, you know, putting a voice out there that had been either marginalized, had been either not looked at or not heard. So that's creating, you know, a lot of stress in the situation, because we still feel we have to put out these voices, and then we have to support what's happening, right? So there was a period of time, and it's still happening, that I produce a lot of work towards supporting the, the the outcry towards and the Black Lives Matter through images and posters and stickers and things. And then in my own work, there are some work that I have produced that are not really that different to what I was doing, but now it's a different sense of urgency to that voice. So so anyway, so that's an added thing that it is compromise is to be part of this, right? Uh, but then, like I said earlier, you know, you have the social issue, you have the political issue that we're trying to almost defend ourselves from, but then, you know, then there is the personal issue, like you know, a lot of people are going through hard times. And there are some people that might be okay, but it's very fragile. You know, I can talk to you today, and then next week I'll see you again, and you have lost your job or you have had to move. So that's stressful, right? And then how to manage and stay afloat, right? Like you know, how do you still pay rent on a studio that is the production have dropped? You know, we can still be making work, but we don't have the same outreach we had 6 months ago. So that time period is very critical because a lot of us can be affected by that lack of access to the public, you know. And the audience and the public is stressed too. So, you know, there are some people are doing well and they're supporting artists and projects, but you know, that's temporary, and you can rely on like somebody bought a print or a piece of work from you. That doesn't mean it's gonna happen again next week, you know. So it's very stressful in that sense.
Yeah. It sounds like you've had to really restructure everything because it's so connected also.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about these changes from when you were doing work around the issues that we're talking about these days, and how you're approaching that work now.
Yeah.
If you are producing more of that, how are you? What are you talking about
Yeah.
with what are the conversations with
Yeah,
other artists?
it's very interesting because, you know, in my practice, I will say half the work that I produce was about historical issues. And the reason I was interested in history, and that's why my show with Carlos was going to be very important, because we kind of lined up on that framework that we have been looking at, and in this case, finding, historical event that happened 10, 20, 50 years, 100 years ago that have an effect on our social standing at the moment. For example, being from Dominican Republic, I will look at a lot of historical events where the U.S. and Dominican Republic, cross paths. And those historical events have an effect on our life now, right? One as an immigrant group, and one as how we fit in this, in this society. So it brings a lot of clarity to this path, and at the same time it challenges some issues, because as we know, history have never, or not always, is being told the way or different perspective can be looked at that moment. So I think that bringing light into certain issues helps a lot on your standing at the moment. So that was really impactful to me, because, if you look at the issues that we have at this moment, this racial tension, a lot come from the fact that history was not told the right way, right? So it's very impactful, because is to me, that's such a key element that I use in my practice, is that clarity. How do this event can be looked at, and different groups, Dominican people, American people, a lot of them might have known, or they didn't even know about it, right? So they have formed this image without that knowledge. And that's one of the things that is happening now. A lot of white people are saying, oh, I was not aware of all these issues that happened 100 years ago on how American society, blocked Black people from certain things, so they were not aware of it. So they formed their life and their image of that relationship in a different way, because they didn't have that information, because systematically that was blocked, so that's, to me, is very telling, because that's what I'm interested on, is once you reveal those realities, then how do you now make up your mind about it, right? Because now you have evidence, you have knowledge, and not even that, now you know that you weren't told that. You know what I mean? So that's even tougher for a lot of people to accept that they were not informed, because probably they were not alive when that happened, or their parents' generation didn't talk about it because it was convenient for them not to mention it. And my feeling is that, and I have a lot of the artists that I work, they have, that deals with other issues. People have been talking about this, and socially, the Black community, the Mexican American community, had been talking about these issues for a long time. And that was the deal. It's like, you see, you were never listening. We were expressing this at all kinds of levels, educationally, in the workplace, in the art world, so now all that is kind of collapsing together. So there is this massive amount of feelings and information and points being brought up that, it have created this very tense moment. So how do you support that, even if you're not from that group? How do you deal with your privilege when you see so many injustices happening? So that creates, some good things, but at the same time, it's very tense, So So we, there are artists putting our work that they have done 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, that is so relevant to the moment. But that work's been around for 20 years, but that voice was never heard or paid attention to. And again, socially also. So I think that, that combination of now nothing is in a vacuum anymore. The art world is so intertwined with the social world and the social reality of what people are living through. Uh, and it's very tricky space right now, because like I said, you have to be, either have been affected, your community has been affected, uh, or you have not, but you are very aware and sympathetic to that. So what role do you play? How do you put something in? ¿Cómo uno aporta algo de valor a esa situación? And it's very important because I was just in an interview and they asked me, like, do you have a message for young people? I'm like, no, I don't. My message is I'm all about supporting what's going on, and there is an energy and a drive that the young people are executing, and they're doing it in a very good way. So my role as somebody who's a little older is I just want to support that drive, right? Because they have an experience. If I bring in my experience from when I was 20, it might not be relevant because the moment is so different. They have experienced something, they're facing something that it's not that it's new, it's just that it's a different dynamic, socially, politically, and of course, because of the social tension on top of the COVID-19 issue, have revealed this stuff and intensified that, because, and I have a 22-year-old and a 24-year-old, so they are in the middle of that. It's affecting their life, right? Their experience at this moment right now, I almost cannot even understand because it's a different path. Life right now is different, we are enclosed in our spaces, in our city, travel, engagement, jobs, life, all that stuff is all in flux right now, so that does affect your practice, your focus, in terms that I don't believe that, and in my case, it's not that it changes me that much. It's just that it rechannels energies in different ways. There are some ideas or projects that I probably was engaged to that right now I'm comfortable putting it away. And I also, another question that have been brought up a lot is like, what are you doing right now? And it's almost like I'm doing some stuff, but really I'm just telling myself to step back and want to listen and want to observe and almost let the process itself happen, right? Rather than trying to push certain edges that, I need to stay productive on this or in that, or I can't put that idea away. Yeah, I can put it away. It's not gonna go, we're gonna be back. I don't know at what level and what it will look like, but right now it's like, it's like introspective space and observing.
Mhm. Pepe, thank you so much for giving me such a wonderful overview of all of these connections that we're all, um, I guess, realizing right now in different ways.
Yeah.
Before we stop this interview, I wanted to ask you if there's anything else that you'd like to say.
No, I mean, you know, again, I think that the one thing is that a lot of artists are sharing these experiences also behind among ourselves. And I think it's very important that we do that because, like I said earlier, um, we as a community, as an art community, and people that you know, everybody is going through a little bit of a different situation. And I might still have my studio right now, but next month I might not. So what I'm saying with that is that at any moment we could be in somebody else's shoe, you know. So I think that solidarity, that awareness is very helpful to be aware of what people are going through, uh, and create that spirit of sharing information, support, whatever that can look like, you know. So.
Okay. Thank you, Pepe. I really appreciate you taking the time for this conversation, and I look forward to staying connected.
All right. Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay.